What if Deku was half Pyronite? And this is a story I've been working on for a pretty long time, actually. I wanted to do this what if for a really long time, but I was just inspired to really sit down here and actually make this what if by a new video of what if Deku was an Osmosian, aka the same species Kevin 11 is. Now, honestly, I really love their what if of it, but this is going to be a little bit different from their what if, because this is a story I've been working on a long time, probably before I made my What If Deku Was Ben 10 series, my very first iteration of it, not the reboot, as it was a really good story and idea at the back of my head after I rewatched some episodes of, I can't remember his name, but the black teenager that had or was half Pyronite in the Ben 10 Alien Force series. I'm gonna put his picture up in the name here. But I love this character so much in the Ben 10 franchise, and honestly, I wanted to see if I could make a similar character with the basis and the idea of having, well, Deku be half Pyronite. As I am, if this series does do good, I might do what if Deku was half Tetraman? But I don't even know if a Tetraman can even reproduce with a human, let alone a Pyronite with a human. But it worked with that half-human hybrid in the Alien Force series. So however they did it, Deku mother Inko would have done it with, well, Draco. Draco being this universe's version of Asashi. In this universe, Asashi would have not been born human, or even born on Earth, as he would have been born millennia starlight years or star years away from Earth, as he would have been born on the planet Pyros, as Pyros would have been a planet-like star. So basically their planet resembles a star type of atmosphere and its core, as the whole planet is like a core of a planet, completely enveloped in heat, flames, lava, and rocky, substances and rocky surfaces, as it's more or less a lava planet, as they have very good fun there, and their species is in very good hands. But over the years, a war broke out. Two different type of Pyronites started to emerge from Earth, or from basically this planet, not Earth, but basically Pyros would have started over the years. Evolution would have changed slowly, as eventually two species would have been born from Pyros. The original OG species of the Pyronites, and some sort of monstrous version of the Pyronites, with elongated legs and a more lanky and Martian-like appearance, kind of like the Martians in the, DC universe, but just being covered in rock and having the lava core that most Pyronites have. As these two species would have gone into war, them being, pretty much discriminated against over the years of their species would have started to reproduce, and eventually a war breaking out between the two sides. It happening somewhat similar to the war that happened in the DC universe against the White Martians and the Green Martians, as they would have fought for years and millennia, as eventually the war would have become too much, as the war would have still been going on, but this character we would have been focusing on the most is the top general in that area, as he would have tried to flee away from this planet, as his planet was his home, but the war was too much. He lost too many people, too many friends and family, and even lost his original wife, as he thought it was time to leave Pyros behind. His family was no longer here, and he had no reason to be here, as he would have left Pyros, saying goodbye to whatever family he had left that weren't really even his blood, that were more like just family friends, as he would have, blasted off from Pyros by a ship, as he would have landed years later on Earth. As he would have landed on Earth years later, as he would have tried to make refuge here. And on this planet, he found out a way to slowly, over the years, as he would have landed near about some monk temples, as he would have spent years and decades pretty much mastering his powers and also becoming attuned to Earth's atmosphere. As over the years, him getting used to Earth's whole system and how they work, eventually learning about quirks while his, powers started to regress more on this planet, as he felt weaker here, as it wasn't really a big abundance of solar energy or just overall heat that he could use to his advantage. But he had a lot of heat because he was a very profaned general on his planet, as he was very good with his pyronetic abilities, even better than Endeavor. Probably being able to take Endeavor on in a one-on-one fight and win in a matter of like 20 to 10 minutes. Now, we would have seen that this Pyronite, Draco, it being his name, Draco would have over the years been able to develop a human form, as he would have only been able to hold it for about a couple hours a day because he wasn't human. He was able to move and shape his body to symbolize some sort of a human silhouette, making his pointed out feet flatter and more toe-like, him having his flames a lot more inverted on his skin, making him a lot more room temperature type tap warm, as he wouldn't be able to burn and char people, so he would be able to hug humans and actually interact with them without having the, well, pretty much mistake or mishap of burning them alive. So he didn't really have a human form, but he more or less had a more human-ish form. As we would have seen that, well, Draco would have gone through life somewhat the same, as he would have left the temple searching for more on this planet, as he would have walked for years around the earth, learning new techniques of his fire manipulation, learning it from other quirk users on this planet, and holding his skills to beyond belief. But still, on, well, his planet, his pyronetic abilities and how they trained were very much more brutal than how Earth's pyrokinetic quirk users trained their powers. As he started searching around the world more and more, hearing about a hero, Endeavor, as he would have pushed himself to go to Japan, as he would have met a woman, Inko, in a nearby grocery store, as he would have picked up some groceries. As he still had to eat, but more or less he just ate, well, rock-like substances, lava, and overall just freaking gargled down not alcohol, but pretty much lighter fluid, as it would be able to, I guess, reflame his inner core. So a lot of, chemicals that would make things incredibly flammable would basically be his diet. And he would eat sometimes food, but honestly, all the food he did eat was either charred when it entered his mouth or his stomach, or his mouth, or like his throat, whatever. When it passed by his teeth, or Pyronuts don't really have teeth, so I don't even know. When it passed through his orifice to eat, it got charred, and it wasn't really enjoyable. Now we would see that, well, Draco would have fell in love with Inko, as they would have exchanged numbers that day at the grocery store, them eventually becoming neighbors, and then eventually moving in, as they would have passed by dating, and eventually he would have proposed to Inko, as their life would be going amazing. And one day, Inko would have told him that she was pregnant, and he was surprised. He thought he could not mate with a human, or his DNA could not be compatible with human DNA. It was next to impossible, as he was in a very dampened form of his body when he mated with Inko. So for some reason, I guess some miracle, he was able to mate with this human, making a half Pyronite, half human, as he was completely surprised. With human physiological or human anatomy, it's impossible for humans to really mate with Pyronites without being charred, burned, or even just killed instantly by having a Pyronite child. But through Deku's whole pregnancy and how he was being not raised, but grew, he showed no Pyronite abilities inside Inko's womb, making Draco happy that she wasn't going to be burned alive from the inside, as he would have, well, helped Inko throughout the whole pregnancy, as they would have had Deku. Deku being born, but the second, well, Draco took Deku out of, or holded Deku after he was born, he saw a glimmer in his eyes, as it was some sort of fire-bright eyes, as his eyes would became lava-like, but it quickly going back to normal, as he knew for a fact Deku had the spark of a Pyronite inside his body from the day he was born. But he didn't tell Inko about this, as he didn't want to tell her about the war and everything, and how he is an alien. He would have told Inko about years later about Deku was about 3 years old. She would have gone into panic, hating him for this and keeping a secret this big from her saying that our child it was a good possibility he would have never been born. You made me have him. I love him, and I wanted him. But still, the fact remains, it was a good chance he could have burned me from the inside, killing your wife, and you just let me have him? I appreciate that. I really do. I love our son. But you kept this from me my whole pregnancy. The chance of me dying, you kept it from me. As they would have had a falling out, but they soon, years later, would have gone back together by the time Deku turned about 4 years old. Or yeah, a year passed, so basically Deku was about 3 when they had or a falling out, but her accepting, well, Draco, and her asking him questions about his home planet and how everything worked, as he would have given her good memories, but only good memories of his time on Pyros. As his real time on Pyros before he left the war and his past wife, it brought him cold sweat dreams in the night, as he would have woken up in cold sweats, sometimes throughout their marriage and sleep, as he would eventually figure out or have been called one day by some sort of outside, I guess, Morse code, as one day on his way to work, as Deku's father would have actually been a somewhat, somewhat of a pro hero, like part-time, a part-timer hero, as he would also work a main job as a medical assistant. As on his home planet, he was a very good medical assistant plus a warrior. So he had a lot of skills. Human anatomy was very different to him, but with the training, pretty much Pyronite the Pyronite planet had, it was very similar to human, anatomy, somewhat the same, that everything and all the organs were replaced, or Pyronite energy or Pyronite anatomy is mainly just composed of lava type structures, and their bones being somewhat of made out of a very dense version of fire, or just very, very, very durable lava rocks. So yeah, but we would switch years later, but Deku would be about 10. Throughout Deku's life, and also Deku's appearance would change, like in the thumbnail, Deku does have red hair in this canon, as we would see that Deku would have been going through his life somewhat the same. Deku's being diagnosed quirkless, as Draco would have known that he had the spark. But in some cases, when a Pyronite made it with a different species other than human, because no other human have Pyronite species was ever born in this world to his knowledge, and he's only Pyronite on planet Earth to his knowledge. It comes to him that only a few selected Pyronites were able to mate with other species. Like some cases, Pyronites were, in some cases, one Pyronite was able to mate with a Tetraman, and also another one was being able to mate with a Ditto. Basically the same species Ditto is, I don't know what the species is called, but yeah. Some cases like that have happened, but he's never really figured out if, in some cases it has happened, but in some cases when it is a half-breed with a Pyronite or even any other species, it's a slight chance that they could carry the gene but not actually able to exhibit the powers of their ancestors. As Draco would have still loved Deku nonetheless. As over the years, Draco leaving the house, going on other trips, and eventually becoming somewhat of a full-time pro hero, but very far off to America, type, pretty much Asia, and also near the coast of California, Mexico, America, Canada, and all sorts of other places. He would have been all around the world doing a lot of, pretty much big time, catastrophe type of events, preventing those, as he would mainly be on duty for like erupting volcanoes, nearby flash floods that he would be able to, pretty much disintegrate or boil the water to a mist with his abilities, as he would be somewhat of a top tier fire-based power hero, but he wouldn't be looking for fame, as he would never be on the same fame level as Endeavor, but people would see him as a runner-up and see him as stronger than Endeavor the type of feats he's been able to give off on different areas of, well, the world. As people would see him as the, well, best Pyronite hero, but others still seeing it as Endeavor. As Endeavor and Draco would have had some sort of a rivalry every time they did meet each other in person, because Draco did still sometimes work in Japan and came across Endeavor sometimes, as Endeavor would have seen him as a big threat, as they would have hated each other, but still respecting each other with their powers. Now, eventually, things would have started to change for the worse. On Deku's 15th birthday, the Morse code would have finally went through, as Deku's father was told that the war has become worse. Years would have gone by, 15, more than that, 20, 30 years would have gone by since he came to Earth. Probably about like 80 years since he did arrive to Earth. About a couple years right after Quirk started to arrive in the world, as Deku's father was incredibly old, and Pyronites did age very slowly compared to humans since they were literally pure fire energy. As we would see that, well, Deku's father would have been told that the war was even worse, and it was more of a catastrophe, and the Pyronites, the original ones, Deku's species of his father, those Pyronites would have started to lose the war, as he would have told him that he needed to come to Earth. He needed to come to Pyros now to help them fight against it, to bring back their planet to balance, as he would have made a tough decision, him still caring about some of the people on his planet, and him not wanting his planet to be overrun and destroyed by this war. Him eventually being pushed by the Morse code, eventually him giving in and him saying goodbye to Inko, as he would have told him that he would have told Inko that he needed to go back to Pyros. It was something he had to deal with, but he would be back in about a couple months, as he would have kissed Inko on the forehead, saying, "I left you some money, I'll be back, I love you." And as he would have walked into Deku's room, hugging him and kissing him, and saying, I'll see you later, as he basically tells him to stay strong, and that anything happens, if you exhibit anything weird, anything heated, you know it's a secret compartment in my closet. As this would be where Deku's father would have left his hero costume. His hero costume would basically just be shorts, because his hero costume was mainly just his body, since it looked a lot cool because, well, he's a Pyronite. But he would have told him, in that case, there is a tape where everything you need. If you ever exhibit a power, press that tape if I'm not here. I love you, son. I'll come back soon. As, well, Draco leaves, as he would have said goodbye to his wife and child, leaving Inko with a lot of money that he saved up from his heroing days, as he would also leave her with some, well, Pyronite treasure, as he would have left. As we were seeing that, well, this was the foreshadowing of events that Deku would come across, and how the story would change big. Now we switch years later, as Deku would be about 15. As Deku was still get bullied by Bakugo, and his life was somewhat the same, but the hope of his father coming back always brought him to a smile. But Deku was very much more of a darker type of Deku, as he would have fought back the Bakugo multiple times. Bakugo would have just beaten him up even more, as Deku would eventually just be filled with rage and hatred throughout his whole life, ever since his father left. Eventually, the last day, when Deku's notebook was destroyed by Bakugo, Deku just walked out the class. Bakugo trying to stop him, but Deku throwing a right hook, knocking down Bakugo, as he would have sprint off, trying to get away from the lackeys, as Deku would have seen Bakugo and his lackeys follow him and literally chase him down. Deku running and running and running, eventually finding his way in a highway, as he would have started to breathe heavily, but out of nowhere, Bakugo and his lackeys would have came out of nowhere, telling him, "We've got you, Deku." As they would have started to gang up on him, basically jump him, as Deku would have gotten pummeled and pummeled and pummeled, but something was different. Something was off. Deku's hair started to flicker, as Bakugo would have noticed this, backing up a little bit, as his goonies would have still been, pouring in the kicks and punches on Deku when he was on the ground. As Deku would eventually open his eyes would have been glowing bright orangish red, as Deku's hands would have started to feel like they were on fire. Matter of fact, his whole body was. It felt like his body was burning alive from the inside out. As Deku started to yell in pain, as light waves started to pour out of all of his orifices, his mouth and his eyes glowing bright. As eventually Deku would have closed his eyes, him being enveloped in flames. As he would have pushed back all the three characters, Bakugo and his two lackeys, down on the ground, as he would have charred the whole alleyway, brick walls, destroying and burning trash cans near him. As Deku would have looked at his hands, him seeing lava-ish hands. As this would be Deku's appearance. Deku having a Pyronite outside. He would have had rocky type of platforms and plates on his body, as his hands would have started to shiver and absorb and give off flames, as his body would have been completely and utterly changed on a cellular level. As he would look down, as he would have seen how he was burning the concrete underneath his feet, as Deku would eventually freak out as he started to run off. As Deku started to run for miles and miles and miles, Ryan eventually able to get to his house, as he would have walked into the front door, closing the door, as he would have started to freak out, saying what the hell's going on with him, as he would have started to freak out, burning nearby appliances and even furniture in the nearby hallway and also living room, as the whole house would have been on fire. As Inko would have opened the door after her shift from work, as she would have seen fire everywhere, as she would have taken a fire extinguisher that was near the beginning or near the front of the house that she used to use on Draco when he lost his temper sometimes when he was cooking, or either he wasn't able to hold his dampened type of humanish form for too long and he just imploded in flames. As she started to spray out in the whole house, eventually coming to Deku's room, as she would have sprayed on Deku, but seeing that Deku had powers, as she would have sprayed on Deku, and Deku going out like a flame, as he would have been, well, completely naked, as his clothes would have burnt off of his body when he turned. So yeah, Deku, well, manifested his powers, his latent Pyronite abilities. As, well, we switch about a day later. As after Deku would have cooled off, as he would have asked his mom what was going on, as his mom would have said, I know your dad told you about the tape when you were younger, about how of any time you exhibited power. Listen to that. It isn't my place to tell you exactly what your father is. As Deku said, what my father is? What are you talking about? I have a quirk, Mom, like just like Dad. She would have said, no, it's not a quirk, Deku. I mean, Izuku. It's not a quirk, Izuku. She would have said, it's not a quirk, Izuku. It's your lineage. It's your DNA. It's half of what you are. As Deku would have said, what are you talking about, Mom? Like, what are you saying? Dad's an alien or something? And she would have stayed silent. As Deku would have said, no. You're pulling my leg. No, he's not. As, well, Inko would have walked into her room, grabbing the tape that, well, Draco prepared for Deku when he came, or one day this day came, as he would have pressed the tape, as he would start to listen to it on the couch. As he would have been told by the voice of Draco on the messenger, hello, if you're listening to this, I'm either gone or dead. I hope gone, because I wouldn't be there when my son finally shows his powers, but most likely I won't be there, because I have to go home for something. You will still figure out what that is, Izuku, because this is your fight. It isn't your fight, but it's your home world. It's where you, well, originally came from. It's where your ancestors are at. As Draco would start to go on about how our species is thousands of millennia of light years away, and thousands and thousands and millions of billions of years old. So our species can live for a very long time. Our species are mainly comprised or made out of lava-like energy. It was a miracle I was able to mate with your mother and you came from it. My family is a very profound family, and I am a top-tier general on Pyros, our home planet, son. Our home planet is very, very advanced in technology compared to Earth. Our planet is comprised of heroes, such as Earth, but we call ourselves generals or warriors. Pyros is a beautiful, light-rich planet, and one day you could visit. But for now, You are on Earth. You need to, why would I say it? You need to limit yourself. Your powers, if they're anything like mine and my family's, and or Pyronite abilities in general, your powers have no limitation to them. Your limitations can even be put out by Pyronite abilities. Pyronites, some cases, have been killed by being able to be drowned, absorbed, or, well, taken away their fire abilities. You are half human, so if any of those things happen to you, you would survive. Someone doused you in water, someone froze you solid. You wouldn't die, you would just be reverted to your human form. Now, a lot of Pyronites, it takes a lot of cold and water to snuff out a Pyronite flame. But yet again, son, you are the last of your family, other than me. Powers have a lot of limitations and a lot of powerful moves and not limitations you can explore. Let me tell you this, son, make you cheer up a little bit. You can fly now. Yeah, I assume you might be smiling right now. As Deku smirks a little bit, him being kind of excited by the whole idea of flying. As he would say, you have incredible abilities, pyrokinetic abilities that can surpass even the best of quirk users on this planet. As your whole body and majority of your core is a fusion of human anatomy and pyro anatomy. Pyronite anatomy is very much more complicated than human anatomy in terms of the pore or the core we share and the power we give off. But enough of me talking, going over everything you can offer to humanity with your abilities and your powers. But I want to tell you this, son. Your powers come with a lot more responsibility than a quirk. Your powers are incredible abilities that can be honed and save lives or destroy entire continents. As a child, if you were a sorry, I can't talk. I'm sorry, Izuku. This took a lot of time, and also it was very sped up. I honestly didn't have enough time to really talk to you, well, very much forward, and actually get everything I had to get off my chest and not stutter. Sorry, I'm really bad with human English, but human, I can't really explain it. I don't understand why your humans call it English, Japanese. It really doesn't matter. It sounds the same to me, at least. But nonetheless, your powers are incredibly powerful. You can destroy a whole continent if you really let loose. Maybe even a whole part of the planet. Your powers are incredibly fast. And even if you were able to get on Pyros one day, if I was able to bring you to Pyros one day, you'd become exponentially stronger. But you would have to hone your abilities, and you would have to find control on a deeper level, son. So I hope you find control. And I hope your mother might help you with this. Your mother knew a lot about my powers when she was stitching me up after my failed attempts of starting to become a hero. After I went to a hero agency and school. Now, freaking Draco, Jesus. I'm either gonna say Asashi or Draco, either one. Just don't correct me in the comments. Draco or Asashi, either one, I don't really care. Draco, he actually would have gone to like a very low budget hero academy, but he was able to get a license nonetheless, as he was able to train with some other licenses and basically become a pretty good pro hero. As he gone by the name of Heat, as Deku would basically be completely and utterly like a little bit scared that he wasn't even human or not fully human, but he was automatically very much excited for this turn of events. He had a quirk, he had powers, he could become a hero. Dream he had for a really long time as a child, as he looked up to his father and wanted to do what he did. As he was excited, he would start training about 2 days later, going crazy in the gym, and also going to Deku Beach one day, seeing it was a pretty good, pretty much flat surface he could start training his powers on. There was no real people over there, so he wouldn't be able to hurt anybody if he really let loose. And he was told by his father in the tape that his powers were quote unquote, incredibly dangerous. As Deku would have gotten ready, as he would have tried to transform again in his Pyronite form, but nothing working. As Deku's confused, but he just says maybe later. As he uses his Pyronite abilities and burns some junk and molds it together, being able to throw some fireballs, and basically being able to hone his abilities somewhat to a degree to make a little bit of a fire construct, basically a fire stick, I guess, but nothing too complicated like a fire sword, shield, or anything like that. As Deku would start to train even more after these first abilities would have started to surface, as we would switch about a couple months later. And during these training and the months would have gone by, Deku would have honed his skills very well, as Deku would have learned some limitations he had and some powers he had. Now let's go over Deku's weaknesses. Now Deku is half Pyronite, half human. So with Deku's powers, he has the base abilities and powers Pyronites have, plus some of the weaknesses Pyronites have are actually nullified by Deku's human body. So it takes a lot more energy for them. It takes a lot, I guess less energy for them to snuff out Deku's fire form. But Deku is still able to use his Pyronite abilities even if he's submerged underwater, since he has a human type body. So he isn't completely stuffed out in terms of body heat, as he's able to use his human body heat to propel himself with fire or make small type of fire attacks. Deku also can get sick, aka when Pyronites get cold or too cold, they can make ice abilities, or when they get sick, they make ice. Kind of like that one episode where Ben got sick and he turned into Heat Blast and he started making ice or using ice powers. So it's simple. Every time when Deku would get colds or get sick, and it would be very, very lightly where Deku would ever get sick, because his body temperature and his anatomy, or like his immunity, literally burnt or charred any type of material or outside virus or sickness that tried to enter his body. So he would basically be near to impossible to poison or even or basically for people to get him sick. But even if it was like chance that he did get sick or get the cold, he would get ice powers for a short amount of time from this event. Deku also would have learned how he would make fire type of walls and constructs, as he would be able to pretty much melt the floor underneath him and use the melted floor underneath him and manipulate the fire to make a lava type rocks or lava type constructs. So basically he was able to make lava walls and lava pillars and stuff like that, stuff that just block him or shield himself or shield others. So he was not able to make fire constructs yet. He was able to make lava type of shields or cover, as he was able to perfect that type of skill. Him having the base fire, shooting fireballs, fire blast, and also being able to fly somewhat okay, as he was able to levitate a little bit, but also able to propel himself forward and fly a little bit. But the landings weren't that perfect, as every time Deku did fly, the landings would be very rough, as Deku had to learn learn a way to land okay, or land at least good enough so he wouldn't hurt himself when he fell down. So yeah, Deku also had to but Deku had to pretty much absorb heat on a day-to-day basis. Kind of like how, I can't remember his name, the character in Fairy Tail, he would be able to basically absorb heat or fire from his mouth. So he literally just ate fire. Now it would feel his powers. But also, he already had the internal Pyronite ability, since his core temperature and his human temperature work together. So no matter how much fire he ate, it would absorb or make his powers bigger or stronger. But he always had that Pyronite core deep within him. So anytime if he was starved of fire, he would still be able to make a small amount of powers, so he would able to fight back no matter what. So yeah, but if Deku was starved of any type of outside heat or source of fire, he would become weaker. So after Deku's training and how the abilities he, pretty much, well, got from the training, aka Pyronite abilities, or pyrokinesis, being able to fly and make lava constructs, aka lava walls, he was able to master those abilities, and he was ready, or he thought he was ready for the entry exam. As Deku walks into the entry exams and basically walks on the other side of the building, being kind of, confused on which side he's supposed to enter. As he eventually finds his way to the written exam, as he's a little bit late, but he was able to take the written exam anyways. And when the practical exam came along, Deku was pumped for this, as Deku wore a firefighter suit actually. As Deku would have been able to, craft a yellow jumpsuit that was made out of the same material as a firefighter suit that was like skin tight. So if Deku did transform or went on his fire side or went Pyronite or made his Pyronite abilities, active, he wouldn't be, completely naked afterward. So enough of Deku's suit. As we would have been told by President Mike that, the whole scoring and everything about the robots, as eventually they would have been told to go, 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 was no real countdowns in a real villain fight or a real hero in no countdowns. As Deku blast off, basically everybody being surprised that Deku could fly. As Deku started to fly around, propelling himself forward up into the sky, as he had been flying fast and furious, like going crazy, like literally like doing acrobatic type flying tricks. As he would have started to throw fireballs from afar on a high distance at robots, taking them down and literally burning them down, and basically just plowing these robots like nothing. As he would have made a lot, and I mean a lot of property damage, him turning buildings on fire, him setting whole entire literally walkways and building sides and being completely scorching the concrete and making it more like a tar. So basically Deku was kind of, not really caring for property damage, as that did take some points away from him. Deku flying around, eventually flying past the 0-pointer, as he basically would have heard a girl scream before he flew off, as he would have seen it down, as he would have thought about leaving her, but him for some reason thinking, I have to save her, as she's going to get, crushed by this robot. As Deku flies down, as he flies right underneath the robot's foot, shooting a huge amount of flames towards the robot's foot, almost charring or burning the entire robot's foot clean off, as it would just make the robot really charred and really destroyed on the foot, and having the foot basically unable to be used, as the robot would have toppled over on his back, falling. Deku grabbing Ochaku and pushing the rebel off of her, as he would have flew off, eventually landing her near Recovery Girl, but he would have, not really been a good lander, so he would have fell on his back, almost breaking a leg, but he would have gotten back up, still in his fire form, as he would have flew back up into the sky trying to get more points. But eventually, the practical exam was over, as everybody was at home. A couple days later, Deku got his note from UA that he got in, as Deku was completely and utterly psyched for this, as Deku would have told himself that this is the day. This is the day I'm going to become a hero. This is the day I'm going to live up to my dad's legacy, and I'm going to show the world what I'm made out of. As Deku walks into Class 1A, as he's completely and utterly excited. If Deku looks around, as he walks into class, seeing Bakugo. As Bakugo looks at him and says, it's worthless Deku. How'd you get in the UA? You're lucky your quirk manifested that day, or else I would have beaten the absolute crud out of you. As Deku said, yeah, my quirk didn't manifest. And you can't bully me anymore, Bakugo. I'm more powerful than you can ever imagine. I'll be better than you. No matter how much training you do, you will never be what I am. Better than you. As Deku and Bakugo start staring each other down, as they were about to fight. But then being, pretty much, his whole fight being stopped by Uraka. As Uraka would have came out of nowhere, telling Deku thanks for saving her yesterday, as Deku, without knowing it, would have been in his fire form. As he would have specially asked for a fireproof UA uniform. As it would look exactly like the UA uniforms, just being fireproof and being a little bit more heavier. As Deku turns off his fire side, as he eventually just, says, no problem, I just saved you, it was the right thing to do. As he starts to talk to Ochaku, a little bit of flirting, but him being, pretty much bumped into by Todoroki, as Todoroki would have scoffed at him and would have looked past him. As Deku was kind of confused on what's his problem. As pretty much, Ochaku said, oh, some people were saying that you were stronger than him, and I don't know if he didn't like that. I don't know. Or either he just doesn't like you because you remind him of his dad. As Deku says, his dad, what are you talking about? Well, you have red hair that looks exactly like Endeavor. Like, it's like uncanny. As Deku would have said, okay, but that gives him the right to hate me for it. As Ochaku says, he probably doesn't hate you. He just doesn't like how you look. I don't know. But it doesn't really matter to me or you. It shouldn't matter to you. That's what I'm trying to say. But let's just go and find our seats. As she would have been stopped by a yawn, as Aizawa would have gotten up, saying it took you 10 minutes to quiet down. How insignificant, idiotic teens are you? How did you get into Class 1A, UA in general? Doesn't matter. Everybody get dressed. I'm taking you outside. Quirk exams. Or quirk assessments. As that would have said quirk assessments, what are you talking about? As I was saying, well, you may have gone through the entry exams, but you haven't gone through my exam. Let's go. So everybody would have been escorted to the gym locker rooms as Deku was starting to get undressed, as he would have gotten redressed, as people would have been looking at him as he would have been in his fire form yet again, as Deku would have felt it as a second nature since he would eat, sleep, and even go to the shower and go to the bathroom in his fire form, causing a lot of, pretty much damage because he did burn the whole toilet, or like literally, like when he poops or does, human stuff in his Pyronite form, it kind of leaves lava everywhere, or either like fiery, a fire charred area behind, as there was a bunch of charred footmarks around Inko's house, as she would have told Deku never to turn pyro inside the house after that whole week of Deku going completely pyro inside and outside the house. But Deku turned off his pyro abilities after he put his suit on, or his uniform on, his gym suit, as they were getting ready, as Deku would have been told to throw a ball right after Bakugo, and right after the class would have been told that if they didn't do their best, they would get expelled. As Aizawa said that it was not fun, as he would have looked at, Ashido, Zero, and Denki. I think Ashido, I think her name is? Or Mina. But what happened is, Deku would have walked up to the front as he would have grabbed the ball, and him, firing up his abilities, him making himself in his powerful form, as he would have chucked the ball full strength, basically propelling the ball forward with his powers, as he would have gotten a pretty good score, about 20 to 60 meters higher than Bakugo's original throw, as Bakugo would have gotten a little pissed by this. As for the long jump, Deku used his powers to propel himself over the sand, and for the race, Deku gained about second place, as he would propel himself forward by flying, close to the ground though. So yeah, you got a pretty good score, about second place. And for the, grip chest strength, Deku getting okay score. He doesn't really have any type of superhuman strength, so yeah. So Deku got an okay score. Deku getting about third to second place. After the whole, doing toe touches, setups, and other things like that, Deku got a pretty good score overall, about second, third place. So everybody would have been looking at Mineta, since Mineta would have gotten the lowest score, but, Aizawa was showing them or telling them or disclosing them that it was actually just a pretty much, test to tell you or motivate you guys to do your best. As Momo from afar says, I did know, but I thought you guys also caught on as well. Shouldn't I have said something? As pretty much Denki says, yes, you should have said something, freaking bimbo. As pretty much everybody, all the class would have been completely shocked. But Denki just walking off being kind of pissed because he was kind of, out of it. I mean, this dude put his all in every single, test. But yeah. But after this, we would see Deku going home after he would have been given the syllabus and being told that he got an okay score, and Aizawa from afar seeing potential with Deku, but him saying he's probably just another cocky, arrogant kid with a fire quirk. As Deku walks to school, he walks to school, but walks to the train station, bumping into Ida. As Ida talks to him, as Deku talks to Ida. As Deku had a little bit of a thinking, light bulb to try to mimic his fire abilities in some sort of way or form, to propel himself forward by using his hands and the back of his feet as kind of like an Ingenium type of move. As Ingenium, or not Ingenium, but Ida says that's a pretty cool idea. As Deku says, yeah, I think it might be really cool. As Deku doesn't know anything about Ida's family at this point in the story, but I just said Ingenium type move because, well, narrating purposes. So we would see that Deku and Ida would have been talking, but then being meted up by Ochaku, as they would have started to talk even more. As they would have started to, mingle a little bit, as eventually Ochaku would have asked Deku for her number, or asked Deku for his number, as Deku would have been kind of, flattered, giving it to her. As Deku basically says, good night, guys, see you tomorrow, as he would have gotten off of his stop, as he would have started to walk home. As Deku started to walk home, him being stopped dead in his tracks by some sort of hooded figure. As Deku would have told the man to get out the way, and basically saying, can you please get out the way? Can you please get out the way? So the man would have replied with, no, I can't, filthy Pyronite. Deku being kind of confused, saying, what? Wait, how do you know that? As the man in the cloak would have said, I know everything. As he would have taken out a freaking blaster and started to try to spin the block on Deku. As Deku started to dodge it and jump into a nearby alleyway, getting out of the fire, or getting out of the blast fire. As Deku would have looked out or peeked his head out, seeing that the blasts were just coming and just barreling in as the man was closing in on Deku. As Deku hid behind a trash dumpster, as the man started to berate the dumpster with blast and blast and blast after blast, trying to literally just murk this man Deku. As Deku would have gotten pissed off, as he would have conjured up all of his strength, using his powers, and basically propelling the trash can using some sort of, mimicry of Bakugo's powers, making a little fire explosion, propelling the trash can or dumpster so fast that it would hit the man, straight up crushing the dude. As Deku would have looked closer, as the dude would have started to melt and turn into a slithery type of greenish, blackish goo, as the man would have fled the scene. As Deku would be completely confused on what the hell is going on. So I'm going to leave it off here, guys. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Hope you guys like and subscribe. And as always, guys, have a blessed day. Deuces.